So anyhow, I wake up. This is how I wake up. To pounding on the door. And it just blows my mind. And I'm like, what the heck? And I wake up and I look and the girl's like, I'm still LARPing. I was like, I woke up LARPing. And then the guy, I look over and he's hiding beside the door waiting to get a sneak attack to whoever comes in. And I kid you not, I look out this window and I see this tall, very attractive.
Welcome back to the Nazarene Nerd Podcast. I'm David the Nazarene Nerd, and today I have with me RJ.
Hi, RJ Tomasello, friend of David.
What are we talking about today, RJ?
Whatever you want to talk about.
I guess so. We had a discussion of a couple things, but I think we'll keep it light today and do Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, we can do that.
So first up, how did we meet? Seems in today's society, it seems kind of weird and creepy the way we met.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm down for adventure though. I was willing to take the risk.
it worked out.
Yeah. So I answered a call, a Facebook ad or post.
I think it was in the Huntington County Dungeons and Dragons group, which
looking for a
I don't know if it's still even open.
I think it is.
So I must have got blocked from her. Yeah, I can't say it.
I think it is. It's definitely cold and lonely in there though. No one's conversing. But that's how I met you. Yeah, I answered that saying, yeah, I'll come and DM for you guys. And then I show up to this house, and then you want me to go in your basement. I was like, oh, well, this is it.
The actual dungeon.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I did, though. We have a good friendship.
It worked out. We, get along on most topics and whatnot. So
it was nice. We jived well.
Because you see too many people in different groups and communities that just don't get along or have a very diverse
belief system.
Yeah,
cultural differences. Republican, Democrat. Unfortunately, it's as simple as that now.
Yeah, I remember the days of early 2000s when that wasn't really even a discussed topic. It's
exactly.
Like, oh yeah, that was my political party, but we all get along a lot better. It wasn't, these issues weren't so prevalent.
Yeah, totally.
But now it's a change culture, but even if you're on different sides of the spectrum, you can still have fun with your hobbies and interests and stuff. So
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I've ran into some interesting people playing D&D.
Yeah. I think the most, besides our last one shot, the most recent I did was a one shot at the Green Bean in Altoona. There was I think the Gearbox Union had put on this TTRPG or board game day in donations for like St. Jude's or something like that. And it was the first time I ever played Dungeons and Dragons outside of a house. So it was a different atmosphere of people I have never met before. Yeah. Just coming together randomly inside of a coffee shop just to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Totally. My friend Marcus and I, Marcus, he actually took me to a few conventions that were based around Dungeons and Dragons, like the Adventurers Guild and things like whatnot. And I'll tell you what, it is very unique experience playing it in a room with 15 tables, and each table have 10 players simultaneously.
Seems like a lot of people just to try to DM.
What's
like
that?
Just 10 people just seems like a lot of people.
Well,
we're used to 5 or 6, but then you add like the extra 4 people, adds more turns, time's longer, trying to get that through a session.
I think to be honest, I think the actual max per table was 8 plus the DM.
Okay.
So 9 was the max. But you always had someone's maybe girlfriend there or their friend sitting with them, so it always looked like a little bit more. But yeah, it was definitely interesting and fun. Different spin on it. I prefer, obviously, like I'm assuming you do too, the more private in a friend's home.
Yeah, I think because I tried
more immersion.
Yeah, I tried streaming D&D, which I think it was fun. It was fun for a while. I had a friend group from around this area that most of them I went to school with. I think actually all of them except for one I graduated with. So it was fun, but it was a time consuming trying to get session prep, which is the big tedious issue, and then trying to get the stream ready of like, all right, here's the assets I need, here's the sound effects I need, here's how to make it look good, here make sure the camera's right, here's the lighting, and it was a lot of work. I mean, I go when I get into a hobby, I'm extra about it. I go full out.
100%.
Like I'm already,
That's
shed.
a good thing about you, though.
My shed looks like a tavern, which it's going to look more once I get a bar over here, a fireplace, which so I need XPS foam, that like wall insulation stuff. I was driving home Monday, and a lot of these trucking companies, they'll put foam and stuff beside wood or machines strapped down to kind of keep it.
Yeah.
Well, I had seen 2 huge pieces lying alongside the road.
Oh, really?
So I got my dad's truck and went back out,
great.
and it's sitting up here. I grabbed it so I could start making the fireplace.
I see it there, yeah.
So the fireplace is going to be made out of XPS foam.
Nice.
Just it looks real, but it's lightweight.
Something that, I don't know, it's cost money, but there's another product out there called Cell-Tech board. And it actually will carve and cut just like wood. But
Really?
it's very similar to that type of foam, but it's harder. You can actually sand it and all that. Yeah.
Let's look into that.
It gives you a more realistic look.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, I go all out, and it's always draining. And this year's biggest thing of mine was I wanted to get rid of stress.
Yeah.
So obviously, more time away from the wife. I'm kidding, but
That is not funny.
seeing as someone else's wife is sitting in the room here. But yeah, so I just decided like we're just gonna get away from that. I wanted to. So this here room was for D&D. I'm like, I want to get back into podcasting because it's much more relaxing. I don't even need to really prep for it. It's just like, all right, let's pick a topic and we're just gonna talk candid. Because I tried doing a video the other day that I wrote a script for. Gosh, I couldn't do it. I'm sitting there trying to read the script and it just sounds so unnatural.
What, for YouTube or something?
Yeah,
like a funny skit.
No, it was a story time. I was trying to talk about. One of the times Maddie and I, when we went to Tennessee, how much of an adventure that was. And I had typed it out because it was kind of based off of it was all the ladies who own the Airbnbs, like reviews and stuff. And she was a nightmare. If you look at every single review that was negative, all had the same experience. So it was kind of like the minority wasn't lying because it was all the same. But I tried typing it all out and had a teleprompter above my camera to kind of like, so I keep everything on. It sounded so unnatural. Trying to read it and talk to the camera, I couldn't do it. This is a lot easier candid conversation than it is to read a script, which is why I think I couldn't do acting, but it's more like I could do stage acting because there's a much different like presence when you're talking compared to like TV acting and then theatrical acting. So, but I just wanted to get rid of stress and. So I figured just podcasting was one thing and to just stop streaming. And I figured we'll get back down to the basics of just, kitchen table improv of, and from what I did with my friends at a one shot with Fallout. And then what we did with one shot the other week, it's just so much more fun.
Yeah, totally.
There's no stress about it. It's, you don't have to worry about if you're winging it or people are watching online like, oh, well, that's a wrong rule or this sound doesn't make sense. Just tiny things people would complain about.
Well, I mean, you're going to get that. Anytime you broadcast yourself on the internet, you're going to get that type of feedback regardless of what, what it is. Yeah.
At least this here, it's recording, so it won't hurt my feelings in the moment.
Yeah.
While you're streaming.
You can always edit this.
Yeah. While you're streaming, people right there, you suck in real time.
Yeah. Oh, was it real time? Oh, okay. You were live. Okay.
Yeah, and that's why I was live streaming PC games and stuff too. My PC was a piece of junk, and everything just didn't work out. I'm like, yeah, forget it. I'm taking all that out and just putting a recliner and a big TV in my room.
Cool.
Yeah, I've always wanted to get to a convention, but never had the time because we went to AwesomeCon a few years ago. I think we went twice, and they always have like tabletop games. Same thing with sci-fi. They have tabletop games during the convention, but when you're with people, or especially if you're going out of state, it's hard to make the time saying, all right, well, I know I need to hit all this stuff on the floor room. I want to hit these panels, but then I want to make time to play D&D. And that's a set, like you're going to be there for a couple hours. It's not like you can just go see a panel for 45 minutes and then go hit the vendors and artists and stuff. You're going to be there for hours.
You're looking at a minimum 4 hours.
Yeah.
In my opinion, for anything that has substance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So what got you into D&D?
Okay, well, yeah, that's a interesting topic. Growing up, I had a very interesting childhood, so I was always looking for escapes from, what was happening around me, what I was dealing with. And I realized very early on, I would think I was 9, maybe 10 when I first discovered D&D, but I didn't play it until I was about 15. But I was always, even prior to D&D, I was always getting lost in video games, my own, stories in my own head, playing with GI Joes and whatnot. So it was just an easy transition for me from going with, playing by myself with my toys and my imagination to going over to enjoy, these awesome worlds that we come up with imaginatively with other people. That to me blew my mind. I was like, man, I'm not, alone. There's other geeks out here that want to use their imagination and escape this reality that we live in. So that's kind of how I ended up getting into it. Specifically, my friend named Kent Landis, a good friend of mine.
I think I met him once.
I think you did,
twice.
yeah, at least once. He retired from the Navy. One of my best friends, and we went to high school together. And I remember I was like 15. He is like, he's a little older than me. Had just got his license. He's like, hey, let's go to Altoona. There's this game shop called Gatehouse Games.
Oh, so they've been around a long time.
Gatehouse Games? Yeah, that's his third building.
Oh, really? So has he been in Altoona the longest out of all the game shops?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. He started, I want to say 98, 99.
Wow.
Maybe 2000, but right in there. Because I went over at 2002.
I'd like to see that place up and running like fully, because you go in there right now and it's just kind of like,
oh, it's dead now.
It's a dead zone, and each like a section's kind of like darkened, and
it's unfortunate.
You could tell. I think this move happened right before COVID, I think, and then so now he doesn't really have the money to back up the renovations and whatnot. So, but it looks like it's legitimately a castle outside, and then you go walk in, you can see the arch and stuff. So I think it'd be really cool once he can get it fully finished.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I just don't. I don't want to speak ill over them, but I don't see how it's going to happen because, fortunately for us, unfortunately for him, Snake Eyes came in.
Yeah,
and they're huge.
And, because I think we got 4 in Altoona now. You got Gatehouse, Snake Eyes, the Comics Vault, and now SCG Hobby. Which
SCG Hobby,
I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to worry about them. They're kind of
they're more of a retail like business than they are like sit down and play shop. I mean, you go in there, people are there playing.
You can get good deals there.
Oh yeah, I have noticed that if you want good deals on Magic cards that are like kind of like back print or like really old, they'll have sales for like so many packs or whatever. I think that's the best for that. But if you want an ambience to sit down and play with a bunch of other nerds, probably Snake Eyes is your best bet.
Totally.
Unless you want, more competitive Commander, then you probably want to go to Comics Vault because Neil's. It's funny. I would love to own a shop where every time I walk in and see him, he's either at his counter ordering stuff or he's at a table playing Magic with people.
Yeah,
that's the life.
Yeah, totally. I don't think I could do the hobby or the ownership of it because we're in the hobby side of it for me. I think.
Yeah, I think Neil sold a lot of his Amazing Spider-Man comics to put like a down payment on that shop when he got it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking that he had to sell good comics to start a shop, but
that's a bummer.
Yeah,
it is what it is. They're investments.
Yeah,
you buy them right.
Yeah, that's why I think I'm
gotta liquidate them.
Getting out of the comics hobby anyway, just because I think the comic book industry.
Like reading?
Yeah, I can't read. It's not collecting and stuff, just because
I get it,
trades are a lot cheaper and take up less space than you get one trade for 8 issues. That's like this compared to the 8 issues. It's going to take up that much space. After a while, it consolidates itself. But comics are just kind of sucking anyway right now. I mean, unless you're into like indie stuff, the mainstream issues and whatnot, like the stories are terrible.
No, they're nothing like they used to be. Even the artwork's relatively the same. Some of it's actually getting really good, but yeah, you're right. The content, it's just garbage.
You can only tell the story the same way.
Yeah, so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm like, I'll just get rid of these issues and go back and get the trades at some point and take up less space and make some money. Because, I mean, I got Amazing Spider-Man number 252, which is one of like the same day, one of the first appearances of the black suit.
Oh, really?
And I think I paid like $50 for it.
What's it worth now?
Low grade of mine, I sold it for about 110.
Really? That's
So
great.
I made a profit on it. And then a Secret Wars number 8, same difference. I paid $50 for the entire 1 through 12, and I sold that whole set for 110.
Yeah, that's
which
great.
is funny because the guy's like, I don't really want the other set. I just want 8 because that's the appearance of the black suit. I'm like, I don't want to sell any of those other ones because he's like, oh well, people will buy all the other issues single. I'm like, well, yeah, but then I'm going to sit on, issues 1, 5, and 8 or 1, 5, and 7 forever. And like, just take them all. He goes, no, I'm like, all right, we'll drop it down to 110. He goes, that 10 really your breaking point? I'm like, yes, just take them.
Yeah.
Anyway, back into Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I guess for me,
Any questions?
yeah,
Fun to answer.
yeah, we can go off on tangents about everything.
Yeah.
For me, I've heard of Dungeons and Dragons forever. Growing up, obviously I'm like I think 10 years younger than you.
Yeah, you're somewhere around there.
How old are you?
I am 26.
Oh, so I'm older than you. Okay.
No, I'm 39.
Oh, so I'm exactly 10 years younger than you.
Yeah.
So it was more prevalent growing up for me, but it was one of those things like, in the church, you're not allowed. I wasn't allowed watching Harry Potter, witchcraft and whatever. I wasn't allowed watching The Simpsons. I couldn't watch Family Guy, stuff like stuff we weren't allowed to watch.
I was on the other side of that. I didn't have any regulation. No
Yeah.
parents running around.
Oh, so that's why you are the way you are.
Yeah, totally, 100%. Well, it was interesting because I had to self-regulate. If I saw something that was a little bit too much for me, I was like, yeah.
That's called discernment, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't perfect at it though, but I was exposed to anything I wanted. So it was interesting. It kind of desensitized me
to a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how, you have to look at society today anyway, just because we're exposed to way too much at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And I think things that I'm hoping my son won't get into at the early age if I did, because obviously there, whether it's like profanity or nudity or whatever in movies and stuff, we're desensitized. It's like, it's there, whatever. Even though we probably shouldn't be watching it, we're just so desensitized. It doesn't really like hit your moral compass
100%.
As hard as it should.
I believe the further you go into your relationship with God and religion and being more aware of the Holy Spirit, it's interesting because once you take that veil off, you can't go back, and everything is wrapped around, and entertainment is sex, violence, things like that. It's interesting because even going back and reading the Old Testament, I started realizing the whole Old Testament was a lot of sex and violence.
The Bible is full of sex and violence.
It's brutal.
Which people will try to make the argument doesn't say that it's condoning it.
No, not at all. But
it just happens.
It's telling you. We got to remember, in the Old Testament, the Holy Spirit wasn't upon us.
Yeah.
So we acted more out of the flesh than ever before, or after after the resurrection of Christ, and then when he ascended into heaven, that's when he gave us the Holy Spirit. And I think after that, it was a lot easier for us to be Christians, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was hard to be a Christian in the Old Testament.
Kind of had our eyes open a little more. Yeah, well, because I think the Old Testament was more righteousness than grace, because there was no everything was blood sacrifice then, so it wasn't one sacrifice for all, and we're saved underneath that veil or that umbrella. It was like everybody was kind of on their own for those traditions and
didn't have our salvation yet.
Yeah, I think when I talk about that, people's convictions and stuff, and that goes along with one person's convictions aren't the same as somebody else's. Where I have no problem watching Harry Potter. Yeah, it's fiction. Yeah. It's people slinging sticks and magic coming out of it or whatever. Some people don't like it, and some people think it's evil. If that's not what you want your kids watching, that's completely your choice, and that's your conviction that you don't think your kids are ready to watch it, or maybe ever ready. And I think it's good that I was raised the way I was. That I think if I watched at a younger age, probably could have affected you a little more. And like, oh, magic is. I mean, there's certain types of magic that is real, but it's none of it's good. Regardless, people are like there's white magic, whatever. Like none of it's good. But you know, I'm not going to say your conviction's right, your conviction's wrong, this and that. Because I mean, there's a thing I wanted to buy online. It was Neopets themed artwork, whatever. It was a tarot deck. I'm not into tarot readings. I'm not into witchcraft, whatever. But the artwork is really cool. So I'm like, I kind of want those. But then I just sat and thought about it. I'm like,
yeah, you don't want to.
I don't really want that in my house.
That's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
you don't want that.
I mean, if someone says, "Hey, I have no problem with that. It's the artwork. It's cool. I'm going to display it. Whatever." That's your conviction. But for me, it's just I don't want it in my house.
No, I totally agree with you. And the Holy Spirit is what guides me for most things. If I'm having fun with it and I'm not feeling any type of guilt for it, I roll with it because I seek out the Holy Spirit to help guide me with these decisions because you never know. I mean, our ears and our eyes are they're the gateway to our soul. So anything you put in there is going to, it's going to affect you whether you know it or not. So the Holy Spirit leads my way with a lot of that.
Yeah, which I mean kind of goes back to Dungeons and Dragons and the whole satanic panic, which would you have been a kid in that era?
So
because you would have been born. You were born in '85, right?
Yeah. So there was a group called MAD, and it existed in the 70s, 80s, and kind of died off. It was Mothers Against Dungeons and Dragons, and they believed that because of being uneducated, they believed that it was completely demonic and
satanic rituals,
all that, and it was over the top, man. They were not hearing.
And I mean, I don't see them as a self-righteous group. I'm sure that in some cases people got so far involved into it that there could have been, people doing this stuff.
Yeah. There was movies that they made early on in, I think the late 70s, early 80s, where that was actually funded by MAD to make people, fear the game Dungeons and Dragons. Tom Hanks was in one.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the movie, but he was this guy in college, his first year, ran into a group of other D&D players, and then he started playing, and he found this cave outside of the college, and he set it up for a LARPing experience, live action role play experience, and they went in there and they were LARPing through this cave for a whole semester. And he slowly, first he had a really bad relationship, I believe, with his girlfriend or something like that. Something triggered a psychosis, and he really grabbed on to Dungeons and Dragons, and plus live action playing it. He became his character. He developed, I don't know what kind. I mean,
multiple personalities or
something like that. So he ended up going to a psych ward, because he believed he was his character, and then he ended up getting back with his, going back to live with his mother. She got custody of him again, and at this point he's a ward of the state because of his mental, disorder.
Yeah. And
he would have this little pouch with a gold coin in it, and in the last scene of the movie, he holds this pouch with a gold coin in it. He goes, this is my last magical item. Every morning I give this coin to the barmaid, which is his mother, and then it's magically back in my leather pouch the next morning. So his mom just puts it back in.
That's funny.
But that movie was made and funded to attack the
I want to watch this now. It sounds like an interesting concept.
Tom Hanks is in it.
But I mean, I don't see that being so far off.
I don't give it justice either, by the way I explained it.
Oh,
I didn't give it a
but
good...
I mean, it sounds like it's a cool concept, and I could see where they're coming from, because honestly, today, you see some people that will go that far into it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and I'm saying there's nothing wrong with becoming your character and LARPing and stuff, but obviously you got to know the disconnect of when to start acting like a normal human being outside at work.
I mean, all it is, D&D is an interactive story. I loved books growing up, comic books. I had to get lost. The environment I lived in was so brutal that I could not be in it. So I would read anything I could. And when I found D&D, I realized I could change the story in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So that just blew my mind, Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and there's a big draw to the fantasy aspect of it. I was actually reading a devotional, and it explained, especially with, I mean, the majority of players are men, and it explained our desire for
Adventure.
adventure,
Yeah.
war,
Yeah.
you know,
100%.
being the main character. You know, we just have this innate nature to go do stuff.
Oh, 100%.
You know, which is kind of, I mean, I could sit on the couch and watch TV for hours, maybe
Get
days.
lost. I can't, but I get what you're saying.
but there's-
a good movie, I can sit
yes.
down for 2 hours.
But there's that point where it's like, I want to go do something,
Yeah. Well, that's where LARPing came in for me.
which I have not done yet.
I
Which
know.
we need to get,
I would love to do that with you. I mean, it's another level of geekdom.
and
for
finally,
sure.
and we can finally go without masks now
That's right.
or shots.
Yeah. Yeah. That was interesting.
That was, yeah. We
but,
were all set up and ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, nope, you can't come.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever happened, I don't even want to get into it, but
That's a whole other topic for
yeah.
cast.
But yeah, LARPing.
Tell us some about I know you've told me a couple stories.
I have, I went to a couple different LARPs, but 2 big events. The one event I went to upstate New York had, I don't know, almost 200 people. So that's huge I believe that's pretty big for a LARP. And it was really cool. Me and my good friend Darren had made me a suit of armor out of computer cases. So we like pounded them out, and I made like a chest plate, back plate, shoulder. It's funny because if you looked close at my chest plate, you could still see Dell. We tried to bang it out, but it just wasn't happening. So it was funny. We left it there.
That was the Armor Smith's signature.
Insignia. But so I went to this thing, didn't know what to experience. It was my first one. So I went all out, man. I had like the whole get up, really good combat foam sword that looked real, if it had good weight in it. And had a shield, and I was I believe I ended up being a fighter ranger at the end because I had a couple levels that I could go into, and I've met this, so I'll try to give it justice how the experience was because it was a really cool experience. So I show up, I still have my regular clothes on. I go in and I register. Show them, that I pre-purchased the ticket, which was I think $70 for the whole weekend.
Yeah, I think it's not like 79 is about average.
And great thing though, because I volunteered to be some NPCs, I ended up getting a discount. So I think I only paid $50. So that way I gave 8 hours or whatever it was, 12 hours to the LARP to be an NPC, which was great. I would recommend anyone that's going LARPing to fill an NPC role because it's so entertaining. But anyhow, so I register, and then then they say, okay, go ahead, and they told me the beginning rules pretty much were, stay safe, don't hurt each other. If your emotions are getting the best of you, walk away. We had different like if you were to put your hand up, like this and keep it up, people would know, okay, you're not LARPing any longer. You have an issue. That was one of the rules. The other rule was no contact unless, like you don't go up and actually punch somebody. You have to have permission for that.
May I touch you? Sure. Wow.
Yeah, and then it had this really loud bell that they would play. They would ring. I think it was a recording of a bell, but they had speakers all through the camp. And when that bell goes off, everybody had to be in character. You couldn't be outside of character. And there was penalties for being found to have conversations outside of character. They called it, I forget what the name was. It was, I don't know. They considered it to be against the law in that world. So if you were caught speaking about stuff like that outside this world, they'd actually put you in a jail.
That's funny.
So anyhow, like, there's 6 of us that are in a group, and we're outside the city, okay? And they actually have like a little like city built, with cabins and stuff like that. and there's like this narrator, a dungeon master, explaining, okay, you guys are going to walk into this city, and once you get in there, whatever you want to do, you can do as your character. So I walk in. The first place I go to is the tavern because it's lit up, and I'm actually hungry for real. And they gave me these gold coins that you exchange for money, so I could buy food with them. So I go in this tavern, and I order a bowl of stew and bread, and it's a good helping. And I'm eating this, and I'm in my armor, and I'm sitting in this tavern full of orcs and wizards and fighters. And I was just sitting, I'm thinking like, this is going to be a crazy weekend, man.
It's just like so surreal.
It was completely, at that point, I was so.
As a kid, you're like, this, I want an escape while I'm talking to my friends who are all dressed normal at the table. It's like, I can change the story. Now you are fully immersed into the story.
It was awesome. So I'm sitting there eating, and then all of a sudden, from my right side, like 3 men in black robes like run in, and they start just fighting people. So like my soup, I almost finished my soup, but it was still some in there gets like kicked over, and these people are jumping on the tables like sword fighting, and
they're like, my food.
But I could care less about the food at this point. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, you know what I mean? It was a very first event, and it was some type of attack on the people. Now normally they can't go into the inn, these type of whatever NPCs, but because of stories, like things that happened prior to me getting there, like they dropped the protection of the inn, so they were allowed to come in. So it was a part of a big story that I didn't know. Anyhow, I witnessed that, and then it starts getting funny because that we started playing, I'd say, at like 8 o'clock. Okay, and at the time of the season, it was pretty dark at 8 o'clock. So, I'm like, you know what? I gotta sleep somewhere, and now it's starting to dawn on me that like I might have to sleep in the woods with no equipment. I'm like, where do I go? Like, there's nobody who was there to tell me the rules of like what you do. So like, I start walking this like road, and there's like a little village down there, and one building in that village was lit up still. At this point, it was like 10 o'clock. Like I was from 8 to 10. I'm like wondering what I'm going to, just wandering around thinking, okay, I'm going to have to find somewhere to like sleep. So I go in this, it's like a cabin, and there's a guy and a girl. Turns out I know the girl from like somewhere else, like State College, PA, which is upstate New York. Anyhow, this guy, he's dressed up like a bard, which is funny because he was definitely trying to have relations with this girl, and I just barged in. I'm like, hey, can I sleep here? And the guy's like, well, I guess, and the girl's like, yeah, totally, come on in. He's like, don't I know you? I'm like, yeah, I know you too. So I completely like ruined this guy's
immersion,
and romantic hookup because they came together. They were like boyfriend, girlfriend. And so anyhow, I say, I'm just going to lay here. And I did have a blanket, I think, that I had rolled up underneath I had a small backpack, all within time period. So I just rolled out this thing and slept. I just fell asleep. And they had a fire going because this cabin had a fireplace. So it was cool. Very, very, very immersive. So anyhow, I wake up. This is how I wake up. To pounding on the door. And it just blows my mind. And I'm like, what the heck? And I wake up and I look, and the girl's like, I'm still LARPing. I was like, I woke up LARPing. And then the guy, I look over, and he's hiding beside the door waiting to get a sneak attack to whoever comes in. And I kid you not, I look out this window and I see this tall, very attractive lady, and it's kind of cold out, and she's wearing hardly anything like battle armor, like as they do.
Yeah.
And
so realistic.
2 dwarfs, real dwarfs.
Like actual little people?
Actual little people are with her. And then there's this younger kid with him that he's also playing a dwarf, but he himself is not a dwarf. He's like about a foot taller than maybe 6 inches taller than the other two. But these 2 individuals were playing NPCs, part of the production team, and they were dwarves.
That's amazing.
So they come in, and they're like, hey, you guys are... So first off, I guess they hunted the female and the male that I ended up coming into, they had hunted the royal lands of some sort. Well, they had in their pocket piece of paper that said deer meat, royal king, like deer meat. So they must have somehow they did something where they got this, and they were coming after that. They're like, hey, you killed such and such. So these are random cards I think you pull at the beginning to get you integrated into the story. I didn't pull one, so I don't know. Some people got them, some didn't. So they actually handcuffed them. They had put these shackles on them. Now you can tell that they just turn a little thing. If you turn them, you can get out. But they actually had metal shackles. They shackle them, and they're like, "Well, how are you involved?" They didn't notice I didn't have a card on me that said "roll me." I said, "Well, I just I showed up here and I needed a place to stay, and this is where I'm sleeping." And they said, "Are you involved with?" They knew their names, and they said their names. I said, "No, I'm just acquaintances," and yada yada yada. So so then I walk outside. They didn't handcuff me or anything. I walk outside, and they put them on a cart with like a fake cage made out of like just sticks, and it was pulled by a four-wheeler, but the four-wheeler had the four-wheeler had a sign on the side that said "I am a horse." So
That's amazing.
so they broke the immersion a little bit there, but it was funny, and I was like, this is really cool. I said, wow, this is interesting. But it just, for a few times I forgot. I was like, I was my character for a few seconds, making decisions and interacting with other players. But it was 2 days and 3 nights, so it was.
Is this the same?
Or sorry, yeah, 2 days and 3 nights. What's that?
Is this the same one that you got put in jail with, or is that a different one?
That was a whole different one. That was the cowboy.
Was that a Western one?
Western one, yeah. I went to. It was like undead zombies.
Oh, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, and but it had magic too. So it was low magic, but it was fun to see and experience. We all had airsoft rifles, and some people did have Nerf guns.
Which you get to go pick up your bullets and stuff.
Yeah. The airsoft rifle rounds, they're biodegradable, so you didn't have to worry about it as much. But that was interesting. At one point when I went to that one, that was actually in Petersburg, PA.
Really?
A place called Golden Pond, I believe, or something like that. The Girl Scouts built it back in like a long time.
So it's really close to where you guys are at now.
Yeah, totally.
Huh.
So, but they only do it every couple of years there. But when I went there, I signed up for the zombie. So you sign up to be a part of the 12. They call it the 12. Because at that one, I think there was like maybe 100 people at that one, which is still huge,
especially for this area.
Yeah, but what happens is if you get picked for the 12, because everybody applies for it, they put their name down. You get to be one of 12 people that defend against everybody else that's zombies.
That's amazing.
So we had to defend. We ended up getting stuck in a cabin just because they were overrunning us, and we were literally for 30 minutes just spraying out the windows and shooting these zombies, and they kept just coming. So you would hit one of the actors, they would drop, and then they would run away after a minute, and then respawn and come after you. So it was crazy. You were like hordes of zombies you were fighting. We ended up actually getting overrun, and yeah. So they do that the 12 once for each day. The new 12 people get to go, and you can't be the same 12 once in a year. So if you get picked as 12, you can't do it again until the following year, which is cool because you get 4 or 5 hours of like you're the star.
Being the main character. Yeah.
So they had a building there too that was multiple stories, and that one was pretty cool too because they had zombies in the building, so you had to like clear rooms and whatnot, and it was fun. But that's my big stories of LARPing.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go, and Maddie won't do it with me. She refuses to. I mean, she says D&D is the furthest she'll go in
that's fun
in fantasy and stuff, but she won't do the character. I'm like, you're boring.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple around here. Gettysburg, I would say I think is one of the biggest ones.
Probably it's pretty
and then a
big.
wyvern probably right underneath that.
Wyvern's big.
And then there's one in New Jersey, and there's another one that just Altaria, I think. I see them kind of active on Discord, but they're not as frequent because I think Gettysburg and Wyvern are like once every 4 months, something like that.
Yeah.
So or at least once every other month or 4 months, something like where towards the end of the year they're more active. So
Yeah.
definitely have to get into that. I've always wanted to. We go to the Ren Fair, dress up, go to medieval times. I was going to dress up, but it was too hot the last time we went a couple months ago, or last month.
That was a fun year. We all dressed up.
Yeah, which we want to do it again. Because you have the one in Lancaster or Mount Joy, and then there's one in Pittsburgh, which we haven't gone to yet. And so I think I want to try to hit both this year. We're definitely going the first weekend of August, which is the Fantasy Fairy weekend, I think, the opening weekend, which it's going to be packed. But, I've been wanting to go to that one. We never got to.
The fairy one.
Hey, fairies are getting cooler now.
You keep telling yourself.
And then Pittsburgh, we've never been to, and I think it's smaller, but from pictures I've seen, it's more scenery than anything.
Yeah.
So I definitely, and that'd be great for like photo shoots and stuff.
Totally.
So especially with more YouTube content, I want to, vlog this, but eventually I want to do like a short film where, we get in character and we're, because if you go back behind the house and on the dike, there's like this kind of field next to the river, and across it, like the dike goes back up and there's a tree line. So you can't really see the houses. So I think it'd be great for filming for, you're trying to run from the people, a caravan or whatever. Totally. So I think it'd be really cool story wise, but.
Yeah. I had a friend in Williamsburg, PA that did a small film based around medieval Dungeons and Dragons. I was in it. It was really cool. It was fun. I lost contact with him. He doesn't have a Facebook either anymore. But I would love to get a copy of that. It was like, after it was edited, it was like a 23-minute thing, but we filmed for like a month.
Yeah.
So it's like...
That's usually how it goes. People are filming these movies for 1 to 2 years for 2 hours.
So he did it for a class.
Okay.
But it was a lot of fun. That was neat.
I think if I could go back to school for any useless degree, it'd be filmmaking. Because, obviously around here, it would be the most useless degree ever. 100%, unless you go to New York or California or something like that. Yeah. But, if we're getting our loans paid off...
Yeah.
For no reason, I would love to go back to school for filmmaking.
Yeah, just as your own hobby.
Yeah, even for now, YouTube, there's stuff that you can do, but I think the biggest thing is the equipment is the biggest issue, sound and video. But I think script writing we could do, and the actual acting we could do.
Well, you do script writing in D&D.
Yeah.
Every story you make is a script.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen people get really mad about. When they try to railroad people into doing the story they want. And I'm like, there's a certain point where you want your players to get to like a next town or an NPC. So you kind of like put things in their way, but then there's also like, no, you can't do that. You guys need to go here. Like if you're going to do that,
I would never do
write a book.
Yeah.
Like, you're already doing this much work for the storyline itself. Yeah. Write a book. Cause I have a full world history that I've made, and I got to the point where it's like this is tedious, and I'm not ready to fully jump back into it yet. I think at some point I will finish at least the lore, maybe write like a history book. It's like something that happened, in the beginning of where it was found or whatever. Yeah. But it's too much stress to do a fully a campaign that is homebrew. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm lucky. Because it's never stressful for me.
I get stressed easy anymore.
And I get it. I did it. And it's okay because it's your style. You want to be very meticulous.
Oh yeah, I try
it out.
I do
thoroughly.
Too much in the beginning.
You can't do it because 90% of what you come up with in your world will never be utilized. Mm-hmm. You don't know where these players are going to go, what turn they're going to make, what decisions they're going to make, because no matter what you do, and as a DM, this, you're going to have to go on the fly. Oh yeah. You have to. And I'm really, I love doing it. I'm okay. I'm really okay with it. On the fly. Boom. Some of my immersion for my players is me even sometimes checking notes that don't even exist. Just so that they know it was I don't want them, the players, to always know that hey, I just made this up.
Mm-hmm.
I have to make them feel like it's already a central part of this world. You know what I mean?
Their decision is really like, oh, you really hit a big plot point or
Yes,
something.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So you have to be ready to take advantage of those, and don't let them stress you out. Try to enjoy, you know.
Yeah, like I said, when I do my hobbies, I go, I'm extra and
Yeah,
go all
and that's
in.
okay, but that's a style of, you know.
And I think it would work more for if I'm writing a book. But like you said, for D&D, it's like, I mean, I have, what I tend to do is I'd make a whole city. And then, all right, here's all the shop owners. Where could they possibly go? Here's all these buildings with these NPCs that could be here. This, and it's way too much.
Instead of putting railroads in for people to play through and your own story, instead of doing that, what I do is I put boundaries in play that exist in real life. Like if you go up to a shop owner, you don't know who that guy is. If you start acting sketchy or steal from him or try to assault him because, you know, someone goes murder hobo, he's a level 19 wizard. He doesn't have to let you know that. I don't have to let you know that. But you may be, if you were to pay attention to the scenario and the situation, see what he's wearing, see some of the stuff in his shop, see his demeanor, you can
Yeah, he's not some Joe Schmo gnome that collects stuff and puts it out.
Yeah, that you don't want to mess with him. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting kind of roadblocks,
context clues and stuff.
Play as in, I'm not railroading you to a certain part of the story, but I'm telling you right now, if you attack this guy, you're all going to die.
Yeah.
And that's realistic. You know, you don't know.
Unless you're giving birthday wishes and plot points and stuff.
Yeah. Which that's okay on birthdays. I like giving plot points out, you know, and inspiration. I think it's fun. I think using inspiration is awesome no matter what. You know what I mean? Plot points can change the dynamic of your game, but the extra rolls really don't, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that Dungeons and Dragons has been, especially in my life, has been a big factor in my, I'd say, personality and interests for the past 10 years, I'd say.
Yeah, and how long have I known you now?
At least 6 or 7.
Yeah, so most of that's been with me.
Yeah, as long as Maddie and I have been married, we'll be at 7 years this year.
Yeah, how old's your boy?
He's 6.
Okay, so when I first met you guys, did she have him or she didn't have him yet?
I don't think...
It was either she was just about to have him or I met
She might have been pregnant, so...
Okay, yeah.
It's probably about a year after we got married, so about 6 years or whatever. So, because I think Critical Role is what got me into D&D. Now, they have gone a long way away from D&D. Well, not so much away from D&D, but with the whole thing that Wizards has done with the licensing and some of the stuff that's upset the community, people have gone their own
homebrew
systems.
Oh, 100%.
And so I think... and the next campaign that Critical is doing is Daggerheart, which is their, I think, 2D12 system.
It's a natural evolution, too.
Yeah, so, I mean, but for me, I'm obviously, I don't want to learn a new system. Yeah. I've learned 5e.
5e's good.
And and plus half the stuff we do anyway is like, oh, that's not even a rule, but it's cool.
Yeah.
You know, we do the rule cool, but it still makes sense.
Yeah.
So I listened to, and what's funny is I didn't even realize at the time that I was actually listening to Critical Role's Campaign 1 while they were still... like releasing it, and I had no idea. I just was like, a few episodes behind, and then I stopped for a while, and then I got back into it when they started Campaign 2, which was fantastic. And then I was like, I really want to play this, and that's actually how I learned how to play by listening to what they did, what they rolled, and then just a few context clues of like, all right, go to this, in the handbook for this and that. And so since then, I wouldn't say that like my whole world revolves around D&D, but that's definitely been a huge part of my entertainment personality and stuff. So
I think Critical Role was...
I like watching them, but it's hard to really get on the level of the actual people in them anymore.
Was very entertaining. And that's what it was, entertainment. But what it gave people expectations of gameplay that was unrealistic because they were all trained actors. They were all very entertaining people.
Have the money to do these big sets. Money to do
the big sets and all the models and all the miniatures. But let's face it, that's not what's going to happen 99% of the time. You're going to end up in some random guy's house in his basement
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
With paper models and
with paper models, yeah. So I think it was actually somewhat of a cancer on the hobby, and not a severe, thing, but definitely prevalent. And I think it brought a lot of people to D&D, but with the wrong expectations of it.
oh yeah.
So you get a lot of people that come in, play for a year, and say, "I'm not getting the same experience as Critical Role," and then they quit.
I think a good video to why it's so funny is I think level 3 XP to level 3 I think is the YouTube channel. He also streams D&D and whatnot too, and he does a video on like people who come into D&D thinking they're Matt Mercer or thinking they're gonna be playing for Matt Mercer, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Like, because Matt's biggest thing is he does sound effects for everything, and he's really good at it, and the voices and whatnot. So it's like, oh, you unlock the door, and then you hear the stop.
Yeah,
and it's kind of over the top for something that's at home when you could just push play on a playlist of sound effects or whatever.
One thing people forget is that was a production. It was a production team,
which is what I tried, and I'm like,
you're doing it solo.
For me, it's like, I want to know how to do what they do on a budget or basically with no money.
There's 12 people that was in his production team, just to give you an idea, not counting the players, the actors, and himself. Lighting, sound effects. I mean, he did do a lot of sound effects himself.
Yeah, I think he had an Elgato Stream Deck that he could, just a couple buttons, but
behind the scenes, and there's editors and there's all kinds of stuff. To try to do that yourself and to try to mimic that in a kitchen table with your friends, it's impossible.
Yeah, the best you can get is an iPad with a soundboard.
So what he was playing, in my humble opinion, wasn't D&D. It was Critical Role. It was its own thing, so that's what I gotta say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. It and like you said, it brought a lot of people to D&D, but I think
I'm very fidgety, by the way.
That's all right. Yeah, it's hard to sit in one spot.
ADD is kicking in.
I think it's certain people, like you said, have these expectations, and in most scenarios, I'm a realist anyway. So it's like, all right, I want to do this, but I'm a realist knowing that I don't have the money for this, because obviously
you did well though with the money. Like you were very, what's the word for it? Your ingenuity is great.
Yeah, I had 2 computer monitors for my DM screen, so I had OBS up so I can change scenes quickly, and then I had my notes on the other, and my iPad for the music, and it had an app for the initiative order.
That's great.
And
I never, it's funny, I never played with you while you were streaming those.
Yeah, we never got a chance.
Never got a chance to. So I never experienced that from you. But what you were doing is probably hard.
Oh, yeah, it's
a classic DM.
Yeah, because I mean the biggest thing that for me, and I was really looking forward to it when I was going to do the Fallout one shot online, but I'm like, I can't do it. I mean, at this point, I want a podcast setup. I want to do that because it makes my shed look a lot bigger. Because like I said, I'm going to have a fireplace and a bar over there. This is going to be my film studio where I'll actually be making videos standing in front of the fireplace, or I'll have like a bar that's wide enough to do unboxing videos. Just each section of this looks cool, but is also functional for the purpose of like backdrops and whatever. But the biggest thing for me when it comes to like streaming was the assets for the overlays. So it like just as a kind of a thing that what I was working on before I stopped was whenever you play Fallout and you turn the Pip-Boy on, every time you turn it, you hear that for every screen. I had that set up that whenever I would switch to the screen, because I made a map of I think it was of Huntington's where it took place, because obviously Fallout's kind of
that's really cool.
based in America.
Yeah.
So it was the Pip-Boy green screen and like lighter green lines for the map. Like it looked like a Pip-Boy map, and I had the assets on there, and
that's great.
I mean, I can show you after we're done here the actual really cool map itself. But every time I was going to switch to the map when they were looking at it, you would have heard that sound of us switching on the Pip-Boy. So I wanted to make sure that, like Critical Role, it was all not only immersive for my players, but the people online watching, which we never had anybody watching anyway. But it was one of those, like, I enjoy doing this anyway.
Yeah, no, totally.
So, but, because I think the most I had was like 5 people watching one stream, and 3 of them had their phones sitting out on the table just to kind of get them views up or whatever. Now with the podcast, I'm averaging 80 to 100 watches per video, which for me is fantastic.
That's good.
I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers. I want to do 500 by the end of the year, but I think it's a bit kind of way out there when I'm only at like 64.
So I want,
go small first, hit 100 subscribers, but 100 watches per video for me is fantastic. So I think that this is a better direction than something that's stressful and
totally.
And you when the more it's stressful for something, the less joy you have in it. Which is why I don't think people should pursue, or at least in my opinion, shouldn't pursue something like, oh, this is my joy, my passion, I want to do that as my job. You're gonna hate it eventually. Your job is like, oh, I'm an artist. You're gonna get sick and tired of drawing the same thing over and over again. Oh, I'm a musician. You're gonna get to that one show. It's like, I don't want to do this. But if you do it as like a side thing or a hobby, whatever, you're just going to keep enjoying it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with making money off of it. But I think when it's your job, you're going to eventually, it's going to be a job and not a hobby or interest. So that's why I'm like, my job is a 9 to 5, making decent money, but it funds my hobbies. I don't like going to work. I don't like working, but it funds my hobbies and other stuff I want to do outside of work, because that's not my joy. That's not my entertainment. So
yeah, totally, 100%. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
I'm sure we can have a longer discussion about some other stuff, whether it's politics or religion or other stuff like that. So
anytime. Appreciate you inviting me and having me out. It's fun. D&D is a big, it's a big thing in our lives. And we both enjoy a lot, so it's cool.
Which brought us together.
Yeah,
so
yeah, it's cool to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.